that bar.
That extra gear, the first 3 steps.
Huge strides in the performance.
That I might not be the player I am today.
Welcome to another episode of Behind the Gear, and today we're sitting with Willy Lochead, and Willy, strapping young man, very good looking, good body on you, work out hard. One of the guys though that obviously, for those who don't know you, playing professional hockey now, which is amazing, but kind of had a bit of I don't want to say a grind, but you definitely worked to get to where you are right now. Would you say?
Yeah, it's definitely been a lot of hard work, a lot of extra time put in to try to get myself to the next level. Yeah, so it's been a challenge, but it's also been good.
Yeah, no, for sure. Now, for those who don't know you, Willy, you're obviously from London, Ontario, and kind of born and raised here. We met kind of years ago now, just when you were playing minor hockey and kind of going through the whole process there. But you played all your minor hockey here in London, correct?
Yeah. So growing up, I was always in the junior night system. My first couple of years, I wasn't on the AAA team. I got cut. So I played AA for a year. Then I played on the second AAA team for 2 years when they had the green and gold.
Yeah.
And then finally was able to crack the A squad there and made the AAA. And then, yeah.
And that was that right in the kind of band of minor midget, kind of right in that kind of draft year area, right?
Yeah. So I think I ended up playing AAA for 5 years then.
Okay.
The last 5 years.
Yeah. And then going into the draft, because obviously in London, and I've talked about this with a bunch of young guys, but in London and Ontario, obviously the draft is, the OHL draft is everyone wants to get drafted. Everyone wants to try to play in the O and play for the Knights or whoever that is, right? You went through that whole process and didn't get drafted. Now, what, a lot of kids are in that same boat. Realistically, there's going to be a couple hundred kids that get drafted every year. So there's a lot of kids that don't get drafted. What was it like for you going through it as far as just, the anxiety a little bit, or the buildup of the draft, number one, and then, going through that draft day, I think is a long day for everybody. Whether you get drafted or you don't get drafted, it's just a long, drawn out day.
Yeah. So for me, like growing up, I always never really thought about playing. I always just played like my hardest I could ever play. Like I wasn't even really thinking about playing at the pro level or at the OHL level. I just always wanted to give it 100%. And then come minor midget, I thought like I had a good year. Talked to a couple teams, and my dad actually had a good buddy who was a scout for one of the OHL teams. Mm-hmm. And he would talk to him. He would see him at games, and my dad would sort of shoot the shit with him, like, where do you think he's going to go here? And it would always be around like the 4th, 5th round, like nothing crazy.
Yeah.
And then he talked to a few other guys, same thing, like thought it would be around like the 4th round, talked to teams, bunch of teams. And then come draft day, I remember nothing happened. And then just thought to myself, like, what do I do now? And a lot of guys on my team from that point, they just stopped playing hockey if they didn't get drafted. They thought it was the end of the world, which for some guys, that if they see it like that, it's obviously going to be detrimental to their career. But if I saw it in a different light, where now I have the opportunity, I can go play. So I played in Ridley for a year, had a good year there, got invited out to a bunch of OHL camps, and then ended up signing with Niagara. But before that, there was you can get drafted a year after your normal.
Yeah, so in that major midget draft, right? Yeah.
Yeah, so same thing. A bunch of teams. Yeah, we're gonna take you. Same thing. Nothing. just iced again. Like, oh, shit. What is going on here? But
yeah. But okay, so take me through this a little bit, because I was in like different years ago. I'm way older, but I didn't get drafted, and it was one of those things where for me, I know. Not even an embarrassment thing. You just kind of feel like, oh man, that sucks. Like I didn't get drafted. My buddies did. And some of the guys who got drafted, let's be honest, were not that good. And you played against them, like, that guy's brutal. That guy, I hammered that guy. Like I played better than that guy. And so it's hard that way, right? So for you kind of mentally, was it like, were you kind of in the slumps for a little bit, or did you right away say, you know what, screw them, I'm going to prove them wrong? Yeah.
So like I just tried to take the best of it. Like obviously any kid who's in grade 10 and doesn't get drafted, that's the goal at the end of the day, is to play in the OHL when you're 16 years old. So for me, it was tough. Also, like I went to Peak here, and like Trav, Law,
bunch of those
Mitch,
guys.
Yeah,
right?
all those guys were top picks. So I thought comparable. Obviously, I wasn't at that level, but I thought I could be a good, solid player, which I ended up proving to a bunch of people that I was a good player in the OHL. But yeah, I think looking back, like when I look over the draft, like when I went into Niagara, there was a few guys, like multiple guys actually, who were picked ahead of me who never even played a game. But like, if I could go back and tell those guys, like if I could tell those draft picks what to do, all they needed to do was just work harder. Like guys sort of see they get drafted, their first round pick, they almost see it as like they're automatically getting into the spot. So I think it's almost better sometimes not to get drafted, and then you have to put in the extra work, because there's like a 2-year buffer until you become an actual good player in the OHL. Like when you're a 16, 17-year-old, unless you're top 10, 20 pick, you're not really an impact player. So you need to be able to put in that extra time. But if you already have the mindset that you're the best player on your team, you're not going to be able to do that.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. And I think, like, when you look back on that draft and not getting drafted, do you think that kind of made you stronger, even more mentally tough, where you're like, okay, all right, I'm gonna bear down here. I'm gonna do that extra sprint. I'm gonna do that extra workout. Because I know for me, not getting drafted was probably the best thing that happened. Mm-hmm. Now I look back on that draft, and if a scout did draft me, they probably should get fired, because I wasn't good enough to be drafted at that point when I look at my skill set back then. But it fueled me big time to like be better and like pass those players that did get drafted, or that I thought I was better than. You know what I mean? And I mean, if you go back to your minor midget team and look at that whole minor midget team, could be major band, minor midget, whatever, major midget, whatever team it was, how many guys are still playing? How many guys are playing pro right now?
Yeah, I think I'm the only guy right now who's from that minor midget team who's playing.
And a bunch of them got drafted. Yeah. A bunch of them played in the O, right? Yeah. So it's kind of one of those things where, and this is more of a message for parents and young players out there, like, don't worry, man. You're 15 years old or 16 years old. It's not the end of the world if it doesn't go, you don't make that team or you don't get drafted, you know? Like, I think those next 4 or 5 years, kind of like you said, like those next 2, 3, 4 years are the huge part of your development and your growth and your work ethic and all that kind of stuff, for sure.
Yeah, I think for me too, it also helped me I didn't make the AAA team for multiple years in a row. So having that setback, I think that mentally prepared me that you just got to stick to the course and keep grinding it out. Yeah. And then also, so similar in the NHL draft, I didn't think I was going to get drafted at all, because in my 17-year-old year, I think I had 4 points in the OHL, so nothing crazy at all. But I think it also just made me think that, like, I have to work harder if I want to compete with these guys who do get drafted. And there's guys from so it would be the 2017, 18 NHL draft who got drafted and aren't playing at all, because it's the same thing. They just don't work hard. They see it as a ticket and they just almost hang it up.
Yeah. Well, I think you're right, because I think what happens a lot of times too is young kids get drafted to the OHL, especially high picks, and they think, I just got to put in a couple of years here, then I'll sign my $1 million ticket to the NHL and I'm good to go. But they forget that when you do get drafted to the O, or you're trying to make that jump, that's when the work starts, man. And then when that opportunity comes for the NHL or pro hockey, then that's a whole other level of work ethic. You know what I mean? But a lot of them just think it's a ride. It's kind of like a carnival ride. It's just a free, I got on, punch my ticket, here we go. Yeah, and I mean, you see it now even at pro. Like some guys that are taking, you've got probably some 19, 20-year-olds playing pro with you right now that are high picks that are just waiting for their opportunity to get called up. And you're like, man, it doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you have to have ridiculous talent if you want to just show up and not prepare outside of just the rink. Like you can't just show up.
Yeah, no, definitely. Yeah, and especially nowadays, man, it's more than ever, because everyone's doing so much, for the most part, right? You still have players that are trying to float through, no doubt. And you still have players that are crazy skilled that you and I look at and be like, man, I wish I had like a piece of that skill, because it's just, everything's easy for them. You know what I mean? But I think you still need, you combine that skill with work ethic, and that player can be unbelievable.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What were your parents like going through the whole process? Because I know your dad's, from a hockey background, your uncle played, your dad played, so what like, let's say getting cut from AAA when you were young and things like that. What was that message sent? Like, was your dad pissed, or was he like, buddy, you just got to work hard. You got to, figure it out.
Yeah. So my dad, he played in the OHL for a bit, and then he went overseas, played in Europe. So the big thing, like, he never after game ever gave me shit if I didn't score, if I didn't play well. His big thing was just, you always have to give it your all. Like, he's not going to drive 2 hours for me to show up and not skate hard. Yeah. He doesn't care if I don't score or get an assist or a big hit. He just wants me to go out there and give it all I got. Yeah. So growing up, it was always, his big thing was just, you have to have fun. and like he would make a backyard rink every year and have all the guys over and just play out there and have fun, which it's like a major thing. I know a lot of people say it, that you always have to have fun playing hockey, but at the end of the day, hardly any guys will play in the OHL or play in the AHL, and hardly even less will play in the NHL. That you have to have fun. If you're not, you can take that into any aspect of life. Like if you gotta love what you're doing, you're not gonna enjoy it.
Totally. Yeah, no, I totally agree. And I think that's the one thing I know for me personally, I always loved hockey. I like practicing. I like games.
Yeah.
Now, not to say there wasn't some mental warfare there where I was maybe in a slump or I wasn't getting played and you're mad and you hate the game a bit. But at the end of the day, overall, I always loved going to the rink and had that passion for the game, which sounds like you did too. And it's refreshing to hear, from other young guys, because you do have a lot of buddies. I'm sure I had buddies that their parents were hard on them, man. Like their dads were like on them about playing hard and scoring goals or whatever it is. And it took some of that fun out of the game. It took some of that enjoyment of like after the game going to Tim Hortons or going to McDonald's and getting a snack and going home. Like it took that kind of fun out of it, where they were almost worried about going to the car because they knew they're going to get, an earful from their parents or their dad usually. Right. So,
yeah. So like I never even experienced that as a kid. So I didn't even realized. I always just thought it was like a myth of crazy hockey parents. But when I was playing in Niagara, like some of the guys on my team still would have their parents freaking out after a game. Like this one guy I played with, really good player, got drafted, and he was just coming off a shoulder injury and didn't score. He was a skill guy, and his dad texted him like this, like this is awful, like, but he's battling through an injury. Like I remember his dad took away his PS4 because he didn't score. He didn't took away his car because he wasn't scoring. Made him break up with his girlfriend. So like things like that. And then he ended up like now he's not playing, and he was drafted 3rd, 4th round to the NHL, and just it killed it for him. Yeah. Like if you have that in the back of your mind, you're not going to be able to perform.
It is crazy though, right? And I think it starts at young ages. Like that poor young guy wasn't just happening in the OHL. That was happening when he was 7, 8, 9, 10. You know what I mean? And I mean, to go through a whole life of that, every hockey season going through that. And even though that young guy probably loved the game and loved hockey, it starts to tear at you and tear at you and tear at you. By the end, you're like, get me out of here.
Yeah, it's not worth it almost at that point. You just got to cut your losses if it.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. Now you've got a brother as well that played, and you mentioned Ridley quickly, but obviously went to prep school. How did you enjoy going to like Peak here and then Ridley in that environment? Because I think a lot of times parents get to that age or the kids get to that age at like 13, 14, 15 where, okay, what do I do? Do I play major midget? Do I go try to play junior B or junior A? Do I go to a prep school? What was your experience like going to like a actual boarding prep school for hockey?
Yeah, so like I'm a big advocate for prep school. Like I think it's a lot better option than going the junior B route or playing major midget, just because it's almost similar to, I guess I'd call it like NCAA college hockey, where you're with those guys for 2 years. You go on road trips, and you're going down in the States, 8-hour road trips. It's a lot of bonding moments. Yeah. Whereas when you play major midget, you're just driving to the rink. It's not really any different from just growing up all the way up. It's pretty similar to that. And then junior B, you have those older 21, 20-year-old guys who haven't made it to the OHL. And not that they're not great guys, but their mindset isn't to get better anymore. So I think to build yourself as the best player you want to be, prep hockey's good if you can't make it to the OHL as a 16 or 17-year-old.
Yeah, because you get a lot of young guys that are all striving for the same thing, right? Whether that's to make the OHL or try to get a scholarship or try to land on a good junior team to get that next level, right? I think I totally agree. I think you got a lot more players that are driving
everyone
the
has
same
the same
way.
mindset. They want to get better. They want to develop their skills, that's part of the thing. Like if you're around people who have the same motive, then you're gonna also follow suit. For sure.
Oh, definitely. One thing too, just because I know you and I know how hard you work and stuff, when you go through bad times, like let's say you're in the OHL or, whatever that was, and you're kind of going through a bit of a slump or you're not playing or you're getting sad out or you're getting healthy or whatever. What are some things that you do kind of even to overcome that mentally? Like, do you just grind it out and do extra workouts? Do you kind of go for walks? Is there anything that you do to kind of help just kind of clear your mind a little bit and kind of get you back on track to kind of keep pushing that that kind of bus or whatever you want to call it up that hill?
Yeah, so normally whenever you're not playing, you're going to have to do the Black Aces skates. So you're just practicing with all the other guys who aren't skating. And a lot of guys are pretty mopey about doing those.
Sure.
And that's the last thing the coach wants to see is you're not playing and you're whining that you're not playing. Like you got to accept it and you got to go as hard as you can. So like this year when I was in Springfield in the AHL, like a couple of games I wasn't playing there. And we would just do like these crazy skating drills, but like you just have to grind through it. But like some guys wouldn't, and they would fake an injury or go off, or just sort of mope about it. But at the end of the day, you gotta try to impress the coach, even though you're not playing. Just give it all your all. Like if you're giving it your all every time, the coach is gonna reciprocate and give you everything he's got and make you a better player. For sure,
no, definitely. Now going from the OHL to pro, like you can, basically as you're young, obviously going from finishing up in the OHL right to professional hockey. What was that jump like? Was it kind of what you expected, or was it, man, this is like quite a bit better than I thought it was going to be, or was it kind of on par with what you thought it might be?
The big thing I thought was the intensity level, like the mindset going into the rink. You have to be there 2 hours before. You're stretching out, rolling. And like just everyone at the rink is even more dialed in because it's your job now. Like you can't just show up, hop on the ice, go for a little lap, and then get off, buzz right home. You have to stick around after workout, do the proper things, get like physio or do extra clips with the coach. So it's almost, I would say it's way more intense on that aspect where you're in there from like 8 o'clock till 1.
Yeah.
Where you're in probably the same time in the OHL, but it's a lot more sitting around, talking to your buddies, shooting the shit.
Yeah. And I think, would you agree though, like the OHL guys are younger, obviously.
Yeah.
You're still in high school for most of the guys. It's a different vibe there, whereas, in professional hockey, now you're a pro. Like this is your profession. This is what you are. So you're right. Like guys are at the rink 3 hours before to get treatment. And if they got to work out or stretch or whatever they're doing. So guys are there, and they're living that professional lifestyle, but it's way more dialed in on as far as what they need, what their body needs, what they need to do to succeed, watching video, all that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, like you follow the older guys in your team, and usually they're 30, 32. And like if you've been playing pro hockey for 10, 15, 15 years, your body's going to be pretty banged up. So like those guys are at the first ones in the rink rolling out. So it looks bad on you if you're not doing the same thing as they're doing.
Yeah, for sure. How'd you find it like at the start of the year? Like, was it weird, like kind of finding your place, meaning because I always found it awkward when my first year on a college team, when my first year playing pro, where you're like, you're just kind of figuring it out. You know what I mean? Like how was that first couple of weeks? Well,
it was actually a funny, weird start to it. So I was at main camp with Florida. I'm signed with Springfield, which is the Panthers affiliate team.
Yeah.
And in one of the scrimmages, I got in a fight, and I didn't know who the guy was who I fought. But after a couple guys came up and like, that was a great fight. Like that's the captain. That's the captain of Springfield. Way. I was like, shit, this guy's gonna hate me the entire year. So I ended up going out for dinner with him, picked up his bill, and then from there, like he always treated me with respect. But yeah, it was definitely an interesting start because I didn't know if he hated me or what. Like, never fought the guy on your team before, so it's a different vibe. But everyone's trying to fight for a job.
Yeah,
where like he got.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he understood it.
But I was lucky though. There was a couple guys I knew on Springfield before going in, so that helped a lot. So I wasn't going in completely blank, not knowing anyone. So.
Yeah, definitely. Nice move, grabbing dinner too. That's a veteran move. Did somebody slide you that one? Say, hey, you should probably pick up his dinner, or did you just?
I just thought the good thing to do, but yeah, he would always host the team gatherings, and his wife would be there, and he's got 2 kids, and his wife would always go up and just give me shit for fighting her husband.
Nice.
What do you even say to that?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Were there guys on the team, like aside from like your captain and stuff, but were there other guys on the team that you kind of looked at and you're like, man, he's a pro. Like he's someone, or maybe someone that kind of took you under their wing a little bit and kind of showed you the way, or, you know, is there anybody like that kind of stands out of people that kind of led the way for you a little bit or kind of led by example for you?
Yeah, the guy who I sat beside in the dressing room, Tommy Cross, great guy. He has been up and down a couple times.
Yeah.
Boston. But yeah, like he just held himself to the highest standard. He would do all the little things that make a guy, like he's an older guy, but he did those small things that kept him in the league. And he was always giving little tips to guys. And if you ever needed anything, like he would hold chapel for guys. Like I'm not a religious guy at all.
Yeah.
But I always knew that if there was anyone I needed to talk to, that he'd be a great guy to reach out to.
Totally, no, for sure. Did a lot of guys go to the like chapel and stuff?
So we had it in Niagara as well as Springfield. So in Niagara, like a lot more guys went because I don't know, it was just more the team atmosphere.
Yeah.
They gave out pizza, which I think was a big sell
Yeah,
for
definitely.
16, 17-year-olds who are eating their billet food, which might not be the greatest all the time.
Yeah.
But yeah, in Springfield, I would say like a quarter of the team probably went.
Because we did it, I remember we did it, well, I think every year, but it was more of a social thing.
Yeah.
Like I'm not a very religious guy either as far as, you know, going to church every week or anything like that, but it was more of a, social thing. There'd be a little bit of a message that, you know, that the preacher, whoever would talk through, and then kind of we'd talk and chat and kind of, you know, it was actually not a bad like little social thing. And it was, for me anyway, it was like so different than hockey. You know what I mean? It kind of got you out of that hockey bubble for a second and just kind of, so yeah.
Yeah, because I think you spend so much time thinking about hockey, like that you're at the rink for 6 hours a day, that it's good to take an hour once a week, once every couple weeks,
sure,
to sit around with the guys and talk about something other than just hockey.
No, definitely. Yeah, it kind of gets your mind off it and something totally different, right? Yeah, which is not a bad thing for sure. Was there anything in pro hockey that kind of surprised you as far as you know, like the meals or like going on, you know, on basically on road trips? Was there anything that kind of surprised you as far as like, this is like way different than what I thought? You know what I mean? Meaning like, you know, how much better was it to like even not that the travel's that much better in the A because you're still taking the bus for the most part and stuff like that, but the dinners, the meals, things like that. Like, was it a better setup than kind of what you thought, or was it kind of on par with what you?
Yeah, I would say like all like the food was top notch, but the one thing that I really appreciated was everyone in the organization, they don't want to stay in the AHL. They want to get to the NHL. So it was between the coaches, the trainers, the equipment staff, everyone's going to do anything for you. They're just great guys because they want to give you a good impression so that down the road, if a guy does make it, that you'll recommend them. So everyone's looking out for each other, which is a great thing to have. You don't have a guy who's been there for 40 years. He's just doing it for the paycheck. These guys actually care and want to build you into a better person.
Oh, it's a good point. And I think the hockey world is really small, right?
Yeah.
So whether you're that stick boy or that equipment manager who maybe one day wants to get up to the NHL, and now let's say you make it, like, man, bring up Bobo, he's unbelievable. Like, you got to get him up here, you know, and who knows how all that works, because it does happen like that sometimes where guys get recommended or guys get that opportunity because some player went up and loves this guy and wants him up there with him, you know?
Yeah, it's crazy how small the hockey world is. Everyone knows everyone. Yeah,
no, for sure. Now through this whole time, obviously this has been a weird end of a season for all you guys and kind of waiting to go back. You know, what are your expectations going into the season coming up? And I know you guys don't have a hard date yet to come back to. Are you just kind of a blank sheet? Let's just see what happens. And I don't know. Or do you have are you hoping to get a good opportunity, obviously again next year, and kind of ride it out and kind of see what happens?
Yeah. So this year will definitely be a little bit unique just with COVID going on. So it'll be nice to find out what the season's going to look like, if it'll be in a bubble or if you're playing divisions the entire time. But I think in like the next couple of weeks, we should find out what's going on with that.
Yeah, I'll have a better idea, right? Because there's been a bunch of different stuff thrown around, right? Like as far as playing, like you said, like small bubbles in different centers, or playing like I'd heard one too where they're just going to play different divisions. So like let's say for instance the NHL play Canada, and then they play different pockets in the US. AHL kind of similar. You play in different districts type thing and kind of stay in those areas. But I mean, I guess who knows what happens.
Yeah, like I've heard anything from where it could just be a regular season to it could be an entire year of just practicing. So.
Yeah, which would be awesome.
Yeah, that'd be a lot of fun.
Just inter-squad games and practices.
Yeah, there'd be a couple fights out there.
Yeah, for sure. If you had to go back and kind of talk to yourself when you're like 14, 15, 16, knowing what you know now, not saying you're a super old wise man yet, but what are some things that what's some advice, I guess, that you would give to some of those young players that want to aspire to play that maybe aren't the first round pick on a team, right? But what are some things that you would tell them to focus on, whether it's mentally be tough or physically be tough, or some skill stuff that you see that, man, you got to get good at this if you want to play at that level?
Yeah, I think the game is transitioning so much more over to the skill side of things, which for me, like looking back, I always shot a ton of pucks when I was a kid, but I didn't really spend a ton of time in the driveway stick handling, which I wish I did, because I think that would have been a large asset to have now. Just have that in the bag where if the puck comes, you can do, like my type of game, I'm never going to be toe dragging anyone around, but it's just making it the most efficient play, just picking up a puck off the wall and not taking that extra second because you bumbled it a bit, but just to have that fluidity with your hand.
I could not agree more with you, because I loved skating when I was young, and I'd skate. Like, that's one thing I love to do. Shooting, I'd love to shoot too, but I didn't spend probably enough time puck handling, even though like you puck handled a lot when you were shooting probably, but you didn't like, I think what you're trying to get at, or what I was getting at, is I didn't focus on my stick handling. Yeah. It just, I did it when I was shooting, or I did it when I was playing, but I didn't like focus on how to get better at it, And I think you're right, because you see good players right now, even like out on the scrimmage on Friday or whatever it is, and you watch them handle a puck, you're like, man, it looks so easy. Yeah. And some players, it comes naturally to them, no doubt, but some do work a ton at it. And I think even now, like at the ages that you're at now, or even the age I'm at now, like we can still get better at it for sure. But man, it would have been nice at 12 or 13 to be working on this.
Yeah, spend that extra 10 minutes for 5 years. That adds up a ton.
Definitely, no, for sure. And I think you're right. I think that's a skill that it doesn't have to be crazy hands, like you said. You don't have to toe drag people. Just more comfort with the puck, just comfortable handling pucks, comfortable picking up passes, comfortable making a little play with the puck to get the puck through something. I think is huge. Exactly. For sure. And I mean, the game, the skill set of the game's changed so much, right? Like you got to be able to skate, you got to be able to handle a puck, you got to be able to shoot. One thing I find, and we kind of touched on a lot right now on the ice, is just the awareness, the on-ice awareness of players now, I find, is so much greater than what it was years ago, where, we used to play head-up hockey, was like head up. Now it's like looking everywhere, knowing what's around you all over the place, And if you think of high-end guys in the AHL or the NHL, I mean, how good are they at just being deceptive?
Yeah, it's like one of the biggest things that I think separates like a good player to top end. Yeah. I'm seeing it more on like the NHL level that like guys have skated with, where they'll make a pass. They're like, how the hell did you make that pass? I didn't even see that pass. Like, it's like you're seeing a different game than I'm seeing. Sure. Like guys they can almost see the play before it even happens, which sounds crazy. Yeah. And it looks like it's just a fluke that a pass gets through, but they do it so many times that it's not a fluke. Yeah. I remember playing against Marner, and like the majority of the game, you wouldn't really notice him. Like, obviously, you could tell he's a good player. Yeah. But then twice a game, he'd make, like, some crazy play. Yeah. And it wasn't a fluke. Like, he's doing the same thing in Toronto now. Yeah. He can see the ice.
Yeah, so aware of what's around him. Right? Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah, the hockey IQ is just off the charts.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think for young kids, man, if they can focus more on being aware of their surroundings and learn how to, like, properly scan the ice and view the ice, I think it's a game changer for any young kid, right? Because it's not easy. Like even now we go out and we say, hey, look this pass off, look this way, pass that way. It's not easy to do that. And you see guys that are really, really good at it just because they've been practicing it for so long and it's ingrained in them. It's just their habits. But man, if you can start that at young ages and start working on that deception and that, scanning the ice, I mean, I think that's something that'll change a player's game as they get older and, get faster and stronger and all that kind of stuff, for sure. Now, away from hockey, what are some of the things that you've been doing? I know you started a couple little businesses on the side. I remember one summer you had like a little weed, your business for killing weeds in driveways and stuff.
Yeah. So my parents always, the one big thing was to always have a plan B. Like playing hockey is great. Yeah. But I could be one blown kneecap away from never skating again. Sure. And it just makes sense. Like you don't want to put your marbles all in one basket. So while I was playing in Niagara and London, I was taking a few courses at Brock and then at Western. And then this year, I was also taking a couple courses at Western. So like my big thing is I just want to have my degree done when I'm playing hockey, whenever that may be.
Yeah.
So then I can transition smoothly into a second career.
Smart. Yeah.
Where a lot of guys, I think, when they're growing up or playing in the OHL, they are in such a mindset that they're going to be an NHL player. And if they don't put everything they have into just hockey, that they won't make it to NHL, which isn't true. You can still balance it off and do a couple hours a day grinding the school books, which in the long term will help you out.
Well, and like, let's be honest, if you're a pro hockey player, you have a couple hours a day on your hands, right? Where you got stuff that you have time to do other things. There's no doubt about it for sure. Now, you went through a bit of a transition, obviously, with, when anyone who's not aware, you play in the OHL for, 40 years. Some players play for 3 or 5, but you get a school package out of that. And with that school package, you're able to obviously, it's almost like a scholarship to go to a Canadian university or US college or whatever that is. And then for you, you ended up going to Western, kind of committed to going to Western. You're going to play at Western. You're going to use your scholarship money to try to get that degree like you talked about. And then an opportunity came up to go, play in the A and sign potentially an NHL contract and play in the AHL. And so how is that how hard was that decision, number one? And, or was it hard at all? And, how did that all kind of play out for you?
Yeah, so I had to look into like the fine details of the OHL contract. Like, it's not really a known thing, but they always tell you have 18 months to start your schooling package. So like a lot of guys think that if the 18 months is up, that you can never access it. But if you access the 18 months of schooling before it ends, so like I've started it now, so that I can still play in the AHL and then do my schooling as well. So it would be like a similar thing to if I was going to Western and playing for the team, doing schooling at the same time.
Okay.
But now I'm able to play at the AHL level while still doing the schooling on
the
side.
So for those who don't know, the 18 months is basically if you leave the OHL and you go sign an East Coast League or NHL even or AHL deal, you have 18 months to either come back to school and use your school package or you lose it.
Yeah.
But in your case, what you're saying is if you look at the fine print, even if you're playing in the AHL, but you start using your school money, you can still use that school money while you're playing hockey.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, cool. So you're able to get your schooling paid for right now. Like your class is paid for while you're playing in the AHL.
Yeah.
Which is great. Yeah, it's awesome.
Yeah, so I thought it makes more sense, like trying to still pursue playing in the NHL as well as still having the second option of, if it doesn't work out, having my degree.
Yeah, I didn't know that. I don't know if I knew that, and you're right. I don't think a lot of players know that.
I was telling a guy 2 weeks ago about it. So he's going into his overage year, and he had no clue that even existed.
Because you could potentially, like in your case, you're instead of playing university hockey, now you're playing pro hockey and still getting, starting to chip away at your university. Now, is there a time limit on how long you can do your courses? Or
so you have to be in full time, which is considered 3 credits.
Okay.
So yeah, you have to be in full time, and then you can't take any breaks within the 4 years. So it has to be a continuous 4 years of doing your courses.
Yeah. Very cool. And you have the whole year to do those credits, meaning like you can take a fall term, spring term, summer term to get that stuff done. Okay.
Yeah. So you could do 2 courses in the fall term, 2 courses in the winter, and then 2 courses in the summer.
Yeah.
And then you have your 3 credits. So
nice.
they're each 0.5, and then you're good to go.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Very cool. Oh, that's good. That's really good to know, actually. That's awesome. And and then, I mean, at the end of the day, now you're getting paid a little bit of money, obviously, to play pro hockey, and you're getting your schooling paid for, which is great. So
I think it's also nice too when you're playing pro, because like I was saying earlier with these guys, you're spending so much time at the rink just thinking about hockey that it's nice to have an outlet outside of the rink where you can just sort of put things aside, and work on something else
for sure
that will benefit you.
Yeah. Now, are there ever days where you just come home from the rink and you're going to lose your mind because you have to write an essay and you're just pissed off about it?
Oh, yeah. The guy who I lived with this year, though, he was a Harvard grad. Smart guy. He was captain at Harvard. He actually worked at Tesla, found a bug in their system, ended up saving them millions of dollars. So a really intelligent guy.
No way.
Yeah. So
very cool.
He was working on creating a software to break this code to get pre-released shoes. So he was spending a lot of time doing that. So when he was doing that, I would hit the books, and then we'd still be able to go over to other guys' houses later on. And
yeah, that's cool.
Yeah.
So he was doing that kind of stuff while playing, obviously, and getting paid, I'm assuming, to do that stuff as well, like writing this code and stuff?
Yeah, so he started up with two of his other Harvard grad buddies. So he was a big sneakerhead.
Okay,
so,
Okay, talk a little bit about this, because Mitch Van de Sample, I had him on a while ago, and he had these, like, to me, terrible looking Nike shoes with like rope as Nike. Like, it was just, everybody's like, no, these are like sneakers, man. These are like hot commodity. There's only 1,000 pairs of these or whatever it was, right? And they were like $300, $400, $500, I think, or more. So yeah, what is the sneakerhead? Like, what?
Yeah,
what
I keep it pretty basic. Like, I don't really spend too much on shoes, because I usually beat them up pretty quickly.
Yeah.
But yes, there's limited edition shoes that they only release maybe like 100 or 200 of the shoes. So what my roommate was trying to do is you have to sign up beforehand to get the pre-release drop.
Okay.
But if you ever go on Google and it says like, I'm not a robot, and you have to click like the 3 fire hydrants or the 3 bridges.
Yeah.
So him and his 3 other friends were trying to break that code so that they'd be able to automatically click out and find which ones were the bridges.
Gotcha.
But at the last second, right before COVID hit, actually, they updated the software.
Okay.
So the entire...
So they had to restart.
Yeah, they had to start from scratch.
Nice. So is he a big collector of shoes? Does he have
yeah.
Crazy amounts?
Yeah, so wherever we'd go on the road, he would stop in at the little boutique stores. And,
really, eh?
Yeah.
And not cheap either.
No, they're expensive. Like, he would go spend $1,000 on 2 pairs of shoes.
It's crazy.
Like, he bought a pair of shoes that it came with a matching blazer, like a striped pair of shoes and a striped Nike blazer. Just wild. Like, I don't have that style. I can't pull that off.
Yeah. What brand names are most of these like sneakers in?
I think Nike still.
Nike has a ton, right?
Major.
Yeah.
And then like Adidas, because they have Yeezy.
Yeah.
But I honestly don't know too much about it.
Yeah.
Other than what
I had no idea, man.
Yeah.
And this is like a whole, not underworld, but a whole like niche market of people that are into this stuff, right? Like, I had no idea about it. And I was like, so Mitch was telling me about it. I was like, that's like, it's pretty cool. Not my thing at all, but it's like, I had no idea that that's even going on right now. It's kind of neat for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a lot of money to put into shoes.
Definitely. Yeah. No, definitely. So let's say that, let's go the other way. So let's say kind of career-wise, what other career would you choose aside from hockey? So let's say it wasn't hockey. Is there anything else that you'd like to get into as far as kind of a pathway, or are you just kind of not sure yet, kind of dabbling around and seeing what else is out there?
Yeah, so like you said earlier on, I started up, it was called the Eco Torch, which is a weed removal company. So we would go around with propane torches for interlocking brick driveways, and we would burn out the weeds. Yeah. But it was tough because it was all in the summer, and that's the major time to train. Mm-hmm. Also, we've had a couple hot summers in London where a lot of the days you can't actually torch out the driveway. Right. So then we get backlogged, and it just wasn't an efficient business. But we learned a lot of things from it.
Let me ask you this: how did you get it started, number one, and how did you like create business? Meaning, how did you get more clients and things like that? So like, you came up with the idea, you and your brother. Yeah. And like, where did you hear about this, or did you see it online, or did you kind of?
Yeah. So we have a long driveway at our house, and we would go out there. My dad's a pretty OCD guy. He wants things to look good. So that was our job, to get out there
and burn out that.
No. So somehow figure out how to get these weeds out. And then online we found these torches, and it actually worked pretty well. So then we realized that we could make a business out of this. So at the start, we did a lot of cold call, knocking on doors, just trying to get our name out there. And then just from there, we went word of mouth and just tried to treat our clients well. Yeah. And just build our brand from that.
So would you just find like some trash driveway with weeds all over it and just be like, hey, do you want us to do this for a couple $100? We'll clean out your driveway?
Yeah, we just always use the line, like, we're in the neighborhood. We can give you a great deal on it. Like, your driveway could use a little bit of work, but we're here to help you out.
That's awesome.
But it's good. It was nice. Like, we were running our own business, so you got a lot of flexibility, and you also learn a lot running your own business, which I think can be carried on to later on in life.
Oh, that's cool. Have you done any other kind of entrepreneurial things?
No, I've looked into a few things. Like, I'm thinking of maybe starting up a protein supplement company, just because I don't think there's a protein out there that really is good for like the mass consumer, but also similar to what athletes use. So I've looked into that. I think that maybe down the road a bit, just talk to a couple wholesalers and trying to figure out what the ingredients will entail.
Yeah. It's not, it seems crazy, right? When you think of that, like, oh man, like that seems nuts as far as, getting your own protein, but it actually isn't that hard. And there's a lot of people that do it, that, and you can find your own mixes of what you like, and then you can get it mass produced and labeled.
Exactly.
And
Yeah. So right now I'm writing my CSC, which is my Canadian security score and the course, and then taking a few other classes. So I haven't been able to pursue that as much as I'd like, but maybe during the season I can look into it a little bit more. No,
it's cool. Now, the one thing that I love, and one of the reasons why I want to talk to you, obviously, is kind of come from behind, work your tail off, get to where you want to go, hockey wise, but you're so much more well-rounded than just that, right? Like finishing up your degree, doing your securities course, like starting up your own business. And I think this is something too for a lot of parents out there, especially, but allowing your kids to do different things, right? And kind of pushing them in different directions. And I know a lot of it you're self-motivated on, but it's also your mom and dad have kind of allowed you to, and you and your brother both, to like kind of spread your wings a bit and go do your thing,
Yeah, I think the more you branch out, the more you see in life, and you can really grab things from different parts and sort of combine it together and see what you do like, what you don't like, and then just try to build yourself.
For sure.
That's the major thing. It's just putting other things in place and just building to try to make yourself the best you can be.
Yeah, no, definitely. So going back to kind of that question, I guess, is there an area, like a niche or a business area that you'd love to see yourself in? Or are you going to kind of keep dabbling a little bit until you find what you love? Or is there anything that you're kind of like, are you pulled into kind of what your dad does as far as investments and things like that? Or are you more kind of on a different track than that?
Yeah. So like I've looked into, so my dad's an investment advisor. So I've looked into maybe joining with him at one point, but I think before that I want to do my own thing and similarly like branch out, get experience from other businesses and other people other than just my dad, because obviously he's been influential to this point, but you can't listen just to one voice
for sure
your entire life. You gotta sort of build yourself and hear a couple different perspectives on what business you want to go into.
No, definitely. I have a buddy of mine who's a little bit older than you, but same thing. He wanted to get into it. His dad's same thing, same exact kind of the same situation, but and his dad did the same thing. His dad forced him to like get a job at a bank and learn like learn something else. And like, and then I think then maybe you get to appreciate a little bit more, because you kind of, your dad's your dad, and he's going to have your best interests. You got to go work for somebody else that, and kind of from the ground up and see what the whole thing's all about, right?
Yeah, and like during this year, there was a couple guys, like they have a decent amount of money in their savings accounts, but they don't really have a knowledge on deflation and how it works, like keeping your money just in a savings account, no return on it, that you're actually losing money because of inflation. So I've transferred over like referred over a few people over to my dad. So I don't know, maybe I'll pursue that a little bit more in the future, but I think for now I just want to do more my own thing.
Yeah. Now, how much did your dad talk to you and your brother and stuff about like investing and things like that? Like, cause I know for instance, on a total sidebar, but I grew up with my parents had a couple rental properties where we lived in this house my grandfather built, but it was a 3-story house on one side, apartment in the middle, and then another house attached to it, like all one, looked like a big shoe basically, right? But I always grew up with like a little bit of rentals, and I didn't know anything about it, but my parents did talk to me about it and talked. So now as I'm older now, I want rental properties and so it's something that I'm into, right? But the investing side, is it something that your dad did talk to you guys about a little bit and say, hey, listen, like, you got to make sure that your money's working for you. You got to make sure that you're investing, things like that?
Yeah. So for him was always, you can't spend what you don't have. Like you have to be smart with your money.
Yeah.
Like you don't want to ever be the most flashy person, but you want to have nice things, but you don't want to be out of your means.
Yeah.
Buy it. But yeah, he would talk to us about investing a lot and sort of walk us through what a bond is, what a stock is, like different things, ETFs, mutual funds, which was good to learn at a young age, which helps. Like for me, just doing school on the side, it's always nice to be able to reach out and talk to him about a few different things in the business world. And so it's good to have somebody like that, like a mentor for kids out there. Like I know if you're a successful person, it's easy to sort of give advice to a young kid, which I think kids don't really realize, that if you have someone like that in your life, if you reach out, they'll be willing to help you.
I totally
Very few
agree.
people will ever not help you.
I think that's,
And if they don't help you, it's probably not the person.
You don't want that guy.
Yeah,
or
you don't
girl.
want that person.
No, you're right. And I think you're right. I think especially if like a 18, 19, 20-year-old, you know, friend of a friend, or, you know, your dad's buddy's kid reaches out, says, hey, you know, I got some questions for you. You're right. I think most guys would be like, yeah, I'd love to help you out. I'd love to chat with you a little bit about it, you know? And I think that's a really good point, actually, for some of these young kids out there. Like, don't be afraid to reach out to your dad's buddy who maybe is a plumber and you want to be a plumber, or whatever that is, right?
Putting yourself out there.
Yeah. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think you're right. I think I didn't learn anything about financial stuff till I was later in life, and just kind of reading books and trying to, you know, listen to podcasts and trying to learn more about it. But it would have been nice. I'm sure there's times when your dad was talking to you guys about money and you're just rolling your eyes like, Dad, beat it. I don't want to hear
we don't want to talk about
mutual
this right
funds.
now.
Yeah. But overall, it kind of sticks, right? It kind of sticks in your head a little bit, and you're like, okay. It was funny when I was young. My grandfather was a carpenter, and so was my uncle. So I used to, in the summers, I'd work with them in the summers, and that was my summer job.
Mm-hmm.
And you'd grind, like, sweep floors or put insulation in, like, brutal. And I didn't really realize what I had retained until I bought a house and I had to fix up some of the stuff. And I'm like, holy man, like, I know how to do this, or I remember how to do this, you know? And so I'm sure it's the same as you. I'm sure sometimes you're thinking of things, you're like, oh, I totally remember learning this from my dad, or I totally remember going through this before, you know? And at the time, sometimes you're just rolling your eyes, not really digging it. But I think it is important to be around people like that, especially, you know, and sometimes that knowledge, you don't really realize you're getting it, or you don't really realize that it's sticking until later on in life. You're like, oh man, I totally remember that. And I'm sure sometimes you're like, I should have listened a little bit more. I would have maybe got more out of
you're
this.
a creature of the habitat you're raised in.
Yeah,
like,
definitely.
It's not uncommon at all if your parents are doctors that you go into that field, or if they're teachers, you go into that field. So
yeah.
Now,
do you dabble in any of your own stocks or anything like that? Like, do you invest a little bit on the side?
So no, I don't. I let him do it all.
Yeah.
I think it's a little too risky for me to play around with that at this point.
Yeah. No, that's
I'd
good.
rather hand it off to him.
So then you can give him shit when it's going down and stuff, right?
Yeah, like usually we'll talk through it together.
Yeah.
So a lot of it's like mutual funds, or so like it's pretty low risk stuff.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
Hopefully don't lose any.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
Else he's in the doghouse.
Yeah, that's it, right? Exactly. So next year for you, obviously, if everything goes back, if everything kind of gets going again, you'll be back in Springfield again this coming year.
So the affiliation switched.
It did, okay.
4 teams switched around.
Yeah.
So the affiliate this year will be in Charlotte.
Okay.
So North Carolina.
Yeah, which is a sweet spot.
Yeah.
Oh, that's cool. And then you got one more year there, though, right? Like within the Florida organization, correct?
So right now I'm actually not under contract.
Okay.
So my agent's just talking to them at the moment, just try to figure that out.
And then how does that work? Like when you are up on a contract like that, basically you could go to any team or kind of whoever's kind of looking. Now you like the situation that you're in, so obviously would like to try to get something done there.
Yeah. So like I had a good year with Springfield, and like it finished off well, and I really like playing for them. So like ideally I would like to re-sign back with the Florida organization, just because how things ended off. But just with COVID, it could be a little bit different. I know if COVID wasn't a thing, it probably would have already been done by now. But just everyone doesn't really know what's going on and what the season's going to be looking like. It's
such a weird year, though, especially for players, right, that are in that limbo. Because I know we have quite a few of them here that are kind of don't have a contract right now, kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And it's not, I don't want to say nerve wracking at all, but it is weird, right? Because teams aren't committing right now. They're kind of waiting to see what's going to happen. And there's a lot of things up in the air for a lot of players and teams right now, which makes it difficult to kind of even plan. Now you're lucky, you're young. It's not like you got a family and kids to lug around.
Yeah,
but
I feel bad for the guys who are come off a contract year.
Yeah.
Think they're going to re-sign. Like maybe they already bought a house, got mortgage payments, have 2 kids.
Yeah.
And don't really have too many other options other than play hockey. So.
No, totally. For sure, man. Well, listen, buddy, I really appreciate you stopping by and kind of sharing your story and stuff, which is great. And we wish you the best of luck this year, and best luck with the rest of the off season. And hopefully you get back to kind of some normalcy as in the AHL and the NHL starting back up.
Perfect.
For sure.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, buddy. Take care. To kind of raise that bar.
first 3 steps,
huge strides in the performance.
that I might not be the player I am today.